Am I Evil by Jack Mangan. Based on Am I Evil by Brian Tatler and Sean Harris, originally released on the album Lightning to the Nations by Diamond Head, 1980. Chapter 7. There are parts of this story that I can only piece together through the accounts of others. Some I was not able to witness or experience for myself. Rhea emerged from her upstairs room, observed the riot from the top stair railing. I didn't see her yet. The madness of my voice rang out against the clamor below. "I'll spread your blood around!" She shook her head, murmured, "Vander, what have you done?" "Don't let him get his sword! Kill him!" She knew my life was forfeit if I continued to struggle. I would not survive this tavern mob. Unwitting, I'd left her no choice. She began to move her hands in invocation. Look to the wind, hear her sigh and wail. Within these walls may she rise to a gale. A cool touch of breeze swept through the heat of the scrum, bodies pressing me to the ground. The cool draft soon grew blustery, gusting through the room, blowing the hair on my head, billowing my clothes like sails. The men around me squinted and held up their arms to block the flying dust and debris. Confusion reigned, sweeping the anger and violence from the mob's faces. A whirlwind had overtaken the room, was spinning with furor, picking up chairs and toppling tables. A small iron tankard, one that I'd mended myself just 3 weeks back, glanced painfully off of my shoulder. At the eye of the chaos, I glanced up and saw Rhea atop the stairwell, her hands moving in strange patterns, her eyes closed in concentration. She was too deep in her trance to notice the bishop on the stair behind her. Henrik moved with slow stealth, a clutch of roses in his hand. Suddenly aware of their fragrance nearby, her eyes shot open. I cried out. Too late. He stepped up to embrace her from behind, wielding the bouquet like a weapon. Their thorns scraped the skin of her throat. A small dagger was in his other hand, its point sticking into her side. He put his lips against her ear, roses to capture the pretty girl's attentions. Vander! I turned to see Cliff in the tavern doorway. Oh, there was plenty of anger there, but his expression was mainly of concern. The witch wind still spun. He was keeping to the relative safety inside the doorframe, but his hand was out toward me, as if in warning. A windswept wooden chair flew toward me at eye level, crashing hard into my forehead. The world flipped sideways, and I fell dizzily to the floor. I couldn't keep the blackness at bay. As I lay there, unconscious, the windstorm inside the spirit's dance slowed to a breath, calmed, then ceased altogether. A painting fell from the wall, crashing loudly against the stillness. The patrons stood warily in the aftermath, taking in the splintered wreckage of the tables and chairs, their abject fear still palpable. Cliff had entered the tavern now, stepping over debris to crouch next to Alvy, whose face had drained to a moonish pale. Lamba, Fisher, bind Vander's hands behind his back. Hurry while he lies stunned. Then take him out of here. See that he awakens in a cell. I'll deal with him later. He began to apply a tourniquet to Alvy's shoulder. Henrik nudged Rhea down the stairs, directing her movement at knife point. He spoke quietly, for only her to hear. A shame, Rhea. You were safe with your powers known only to the elders. But now your secret is out. The commoners have witnessed your sorcery. We can no longer protect you. Your burnt corpse will join the other good witches in the silence. Cliff looked up from Alvy, spotted them at the landing. Bishop, what is the meaning of this? Ah, good. Another elder on hand to help, Henrik said, prodding Rhea forward. The witch's youngest son betrayed his true nature, as I foresaw. Your tutelage failed. Vander Harris came to this tavern armed with foul intent. Now his eldest brother lies dead, while his remaining kin is maimed, all by his hand. Cliff's stoic calm leveled his voice. And my niece? Another disciple of Lilith, it turns out. She used black magic to destroy the spirit's dance in order to save her beloved from mob law. Your poor sister, Her mother will be heartbroken. It was fortunate that I had fresh roses upstairs to negate her witchcraft. Fortunate, Cliff repeated. He nodded to Anderson, who took over Alvy's care. He stood up from a crouch. Rhea, tell me that none of this is true. When has Bishop Henrik ever spoken the truth? Rhea said. A bitter smile crept into her face. But he did make one correct guess. I am the protege of Lilith Harris. Her power lives on in me, and I will burn in hell from the day I die. You'll burn sooner than that, child, Henrik said with finality, nudging her forward again. I don't care who your parents are. Our next stop is Bones Island. Chapter 8. I woke in a fetal curl on a cold floor of stone. From wall to bars, the cell was too cramped for me to stretch my legs. The rain had begun anew. A slow, steady cascade poured in from the window grate high above. My only light flickered in from torches in the jail's outer corridor. A shadow fell across, casting me into darkness. Ah, good, you're awake. Henrik's voice held a note of triumph. I can't chat long. I'm due out on Bones Island at dawn to begin the ceremony. Rhea was taken directly from Spirit's dance to stand trial for witchcraft. Guilty, of course. Even now, she's being rowed out to the stake. I'm aware of your affection for her. My condolences. You should know that my meeting with Rhea at the tavern was strictly on the level, in spite of what your brothers told you. Really, she's been altogether prudish ever since her witch powers developed. He moved his smiling face into the outer torchlight glow. I do recall, though, that she was a treat for many elders when she was sweet and innocent. A shame I didn't have time for one more taste last night, while she was rose-bound and helpless. The crimson veil draped my vision again. He jumped back a step as I launched myself at the bars. Pig! You're not even evil, you're just diseased. But I'll see to make you pay the price. For Rhea, and for my mother, I'll spread your blood around. I doubt that. Regardless, your story is near its end. You'll sit in this cage while your beloved is executed, and then, in a few days' time, you'll be reunited with her in hell. Oh, we can't prove any sorcery in spite of your lineage, but you'll get the noose for the murder of your brother David. I smiled through my rage. And Eugene, and Paul. It had the desired effect. I beg your pardon? You were a witness. I killed Eugene and my brother Paul, too, months ago on Cliff's doorstep. I would have killed you, too, if he hadn't intervened. Yes, that mustachioed ruffian was me, in a disguise spell. My face not my own. The bishop's mouth moved, but with no words. A second shadow fell across him. Henrik drew himself up. Well, here's Cliff now, speak of the devil. I must hurry to go and burn a witch. Cliff, do you intend to join us on the island? All elders are required. I'll be there shortly to bind her crown of roses, as soon as I'm done here. It was meager satisfaction watching the bishop scurry out of sight. After a long pause, Cliff turned to face me, an extra edge of steel in his voice. He's gone. It appears you've broken both of your contracts with me. No murders, no Rhea. You have no idea how badly you've fucked things up. She had the entire chess game plotted out, but tonight's events have changed the board. So now it plays out my way. The killing way. I've seen you fight, I said. You could kill every last one of them on your own. Rhea's original plan was for no cold blood, only evidence and convictions, leading to the king's justice for the elders. I went along with it to protect you and her. But it's too late for that now. David is dead, as Henrik mentioned. Your brother, Alvy, still hangs on, albeit with just one hand. Cliff crouched down to eye level. I've left the diamond-head sword here, with the guard to ensure that you act appropriately. You recall what Datler told you about its particular powers? I nodded. You were the last to slay with the diamond head. You're its master now. See you soon. Chapter 9. The altar was built at the same Bones Island clearing that had hosted my mother's murder. The rain feels good on my face, although it barely helps with the heat of the night. Rhea smiled slyly at Cliff. Her arms were bound behind her back, around the stake. He stood balanced on the dais of split logs, focused on the knotted stems on her temples, not meeting her eye. Take care of those bindings, Cliff. Remember what happened with Lily. Henrik was unamused. With her impudence, the rainfall, the early hour, Vander, everything. I will inspect the rose chains this time to ensure no mistakes. The flowers are exactly where they need to be, Bishop. Cliff's tone was acid. But suit yourself. Henrik stepped up to her, frowning at her circlet crown of roses. He raised his fist in a command signal. The crowd of elders had gathered in their places, their servants creating an upturned shield wall of umbrellas. Alvate stood unsteadily among them, pale, glowering, half-sheltered under another's covering. Henrik began. Roses to bind, flames to cleanse. No! Rhea, please repent! Gerda stood at the perimeter with her arms outstretched. The teeming rain washed tears from her face. Adam and Elder Carl were at her side to restrain her. Renounce your witchcraft and you'll be spared. Rhea has made her choice, woman, Adam shouted. He raised his fist as if to strike, though stayed his hand when she looked back at him. She's Lucifer's daughter now, not ours. Henrik stepped down from his place on the altar, looking miserable. Morning is upon us. Let's burn this witch while the rains are still light. A handful of elders' servants rushed up to the borders of kindling around the altar, shoved their torches into the piles, and retreated. A full, wordless minute passed, the only motion from the rising fire, the only sound the crackling of its logs igniting, its hissing defiance against the rain. As the scalding heat encroached, the strain began to run in rivulets upon Rhea's face. Cliff leaned forward, staring until she met his gaze. His voice broke the relative silence. You've waited long enough, niece. It's now or never. Start with Alve. Put him out of his misery. The rain grew more intense. Rhea began the incantation. Fragile silence, bones so frail, summer frosts and icy hail. Let heavens pour on this island's woods, bring lightning to the nation of good. Although her hands had come free, Rhea remained at her stake, her auburn hair and plain dress clinging soaked to her skin. Heavy rain from above, fire from below. The bonfire illuminated her brightly in orange, flames sputtering as the torrential rains repelled their inward advance. Cliff felt the hairs on his arms stand up. An eerie blue glow swelled up from Rhea's open hands and eyes. Electricity crackled around her fingertips. She aimed the palm of her right hand forward, and lightning shot forth, a jagged bolt striking hard into Alve's chest. He convulsed with pain and energy. Rivulets of blue crawled his skin, from fingertips to stump to his boots, coursing through his insides. Shouts of the elders filled the clearing. Run! Bloody hell, not again! Blitzkrieg! Flashes and explosions erupted all around the killing clearing, advancing the crowd panic to a frenzy. How could this happen again? Henrik grabbed Cliff by his shirt collars, his voice shrill, blinking against the rain. What's wrong with the roses this time? Roses? Oh, that was just an illusion spell. Those aren't roses upon her head. A small smile broke through Cliff's implacable charm. They're lilies. Cliff pushed forward, shoving the priest away. Henrik stumbled back over Alve's cindered corpse and fell in the mud. He looked wild-eyed up at Rhea, saw the white revealed now on her crown of flowers. Not roses, but lilies, as Cliff had said. A brilliant explosion of sparks and charred branches erupted from a tree nearby. Henrik propelled to his feet and fled across the beach toward the dock, where the ferry had already begun to weigh with escaping elders. He nearly collided with a grief-stricken Gerda, who was running in the opposite direction, back toward the dais. Rhea! Adam was a few paces behind her, his breath short with a combination of exertion and fury. Damn it, woman, leave her to her damnation! We must get to the boat! Cliff stepped into his path, locked Adam's forearm in his strong grasp. No, Gerda was right to bring you back. It saves me the trouble of going to fetch you. Adam stared into Cliff's face with slack disbelief. Young lady, you stop that sorcery this instant! Gerda shouted, trying to regain some modicum of authority. Rhea's white eyes appeared to train on her. A rare belly laugh erupted from Cliff, infuriating the parents further. Gerda continued, nonplussed. You've made your point, Rhea. Now let go of the devil's hand. Come down and take mine. I'm warning ya! Rhea flicked her hand, and a jagged streak of blue tore through the hems of Gerda's skirts. The old woman shrieked and fell backward, seemingly uninjured. Come, Adam, she said, her voice trembling. She scrambled to her feet, saw Adam powerless in Cliff's grasp. No, don't go, Cliff said, tightening his grip. Stay and talk to your daughter. She's clearly upset. Unhand me, traitor! Adam shouted. Gerda said, Cliff, brother, please, let us pass. I have no sister, only a niece. That is not your niece, not my daughter, but a vessel of evil. Panic rising, Adam struggled harder against his captor. It approaches! Release us before it's too late! Cliff spared a glance, saw that Rhea had indeed stepped down from the pulpit, which steamed and soaked blackened ruin. Her eyes were still pure energy, her mouth a tight seam. You speak so often of good and evil, Father. The Elder's murders of women on this island. The Elder's visits to me in the dark. Your visits. And both of you knowing, but doing nothing. Was any of that good? Vander's righteous vengeance is evil in your eyes, as is my witchcraft. You may even be correct, but at least our evils are pure. Yours is rotten, putrid, foul, dead. The three watched her approach, transfixed. She stopped before them, her irisless eyes trained on Adam. She forced a tight-lipped smile. Am I evil? I am woman. Yes, I fucking am. An explosion of blinding light. Cliff felt no ground beneath his feet, no sensation on his skin. A weightless void of brilliant electric bubbling out without end. A timeless infinity within the lightning sphere. As quickly as it had arisen, the dazzling eternal place flashed undone, returning him to the Bones Island clearing. He staggered but remained upright. Rain continued to pour down. His sight faded back in, focused on Rhea looking at him, her green eyes damming back all emotion. At their feet lay the blackened, skeletal corpses of Gerda and Adam, her mother and father, his one-time sister and brother-in-law. A moment later, she was trembling with sobs, pressed firmly against him, her face buried in his chest. He put an arm around her shoulders, allowing her to let the broken dam spill out. After an interval, he spoke gently. Henrik and the rest are getting away. The galley is already rowing out across the silence. Those who are left behind are swimming or waiting to escape your wrath. Let them go. A greater doom awaits them. I hear it on the wind. You're listening to the audiobook of Am I Evil, based on the Am I Evil novella, based on the Am I Evil graphic novel, based on the classic heavy metal song, written and made famous by Diamond Head and famously covered by Metallica, and later covered live by the thrash big four of Metallica, Anthrax, Slayer, and Megadeth. Narration by me, Jack Mangan, the author of the graphic novel and the novella. All the legal stuff here, you can't sell recordings or transcripts of this, blah, blah, blah. We're running an Indiegogo campaign in June 2023 to raise funds to produce high-quality print versions of the Am I Evil graphic novel, with cover art by James F. Beveridge, and all interior comic panel art and lettering by Kyle Burles, aka Biohazard. Please swing over to Indiegogo and support our campaign to receive your own print and or PDF edition of the Am I Evil comic. And the ebook of this novella will also be available separately. Or for purchase information or just general information about Am I Evil, check us out at amievil-graphicnovel.com. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you, Indiegogo supporters.